start our show today. And it goes something like this. Welcome, everyone, to What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times, episode 43. Wow, 43rd, if I can get that out, 43rd week we've been at it here. We're going strong and picking up momentum. Had over, gosh, do the math there, 3 guests per show. It's over 120 amazing entrepreneurs, innovators, and influencers within our space that we've had the pleasure of learning what's keeping them up at night, what's exciting them during these tumultuous times, and what's kind of freaking them out. So we're going to continue on that path today. So if you don't know me, my name is Colin Weston. I am the community leader for Startup Vancouver. And Startup Vancouver, as you can see behind me here, we're all about connection. And we are a volunteer-based group of entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs that are here to give you the best chance of success, to connect you to each other, to resources, to events, mentors, both locally, regionally, and nationally. And this is a national show with a national audience that we have here through the power of our friends at Startup Canada, of which we are one of over 40 community chapters and growing. So today, to get started, as I normally do, I am going to share my screen. And as I always do, I ask my good friend Reza V if I've failed or if I succeeded. How am I doing there, Reza?
You never fail. You're just
Oh,
trying to improve on it.
I like that.
No,
It's
you're
kind of
doing
like,
great.
there we go. It's that whole ideation thing, right? I'm fast prototyping my own, I don't know, whatever here. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that and I'm going to move on here. So on today's show, amazing, diverse group of individuals. We first have Michelle Sklar. I've known Michelle back in the days when she was working on the event side with our good friends at Innovate BC. She's now not only head of brand marketing at entrepreneurship at UBC, so known as E at UBC, but also an entrepreneur in residence, an EIR. And even 2 years ago, I was like, what the heck is that? So hopefully Michelle in her conversation could even explain what the heck an entrepreneur in residence is, amongst other things. We also have Christie, who's the co-founder of MistyWest. Not going to say too much about MistyWest right now. I'm going to leave that to Maryam to have that conversation. And at the end of the show, our good friend Mike Stevens, partner with the law firm FASKEN, and they are unbelievable supporters of entrepreneurship and innovation, not only in Vancouver, but across the country. Mike hasn't jumped on the call quite yet, but hopefully within the next half an hour, he will. If he doesn't, I guess I'm going to sing for 15 minutes, but hopefully you won't have to endure that. Only have to endure that for a little bit at the end of the show here. So also, of course, my amazing co-hosts and good friends, Maryam Mobini and Reza V, are joining us today. And today I'm going to mix it up a little bit here. So you talk about iteration here. We're going to do a little bit things a little bit differently. Normally we do our "How you hanging in there" segment, but today we're going to do something different today. So during these tough times, it's all about gratitude. It's all about what we're thankful for. So came up with a little thing here called Grata Tuesday. Don't know if that's going to become a thing or whether it's catchy. I'll leave everybody out there to decide whether that's lame or whether that's good. Anyway, Grata Tuesday, and this gives me a chance to introduce and chat with my two co-hosts. I'm going to start with you, Maryam. How are you doing, and what are you grateful? What are you expressing gratitude for today, or perhaps even the last week since we last spoke?
Yeah, Colin, I'm really grateful for my global community and, of course, my local community. Last night, I had a really amazing experience with one of the members of the transformative tech community, and we did an hour-long meditation, sound meditation before falling asleep. So that was quite powerful. Yeah, so I'm grateful for having those connections.
Nice, nice. And I do need to get you to do one of those sonic chill outs for me. You did one for 5 minutes at our Can Startup Stories, Mental Health Awareness for Entrepreneurs. And thank you for you sharing your story, one of 6 amazing speakers that did share their story. And what you did at the end, you just chilled us all out there. And I was so relaxed after that. So I may have to hire you. Maybe I'm a good enough friend. Maybe we can barter, maybe for, I don't know, a coffee or something like that. Maybe you can
For sure.
perhaps provide that for me, because it was very relaxing and it just kind of aligned me.
Anytime. I mean,
Great.
that's how I start my lectures too. I tell my students to come in half an hour early. We do a session, chill out, connect in like a deeper level, which is really nice,
Nice.
really. And so we can start sessions here too, that way. Maybe a minute
Amazing.
or two. Yeah.
Maybe we should do that. I tell you what, why don't we do that next week? It's
Okay,
happening.
that's good.
You're going to introduce the show next week because I've done it 43 times in a row now. So it's time for to mix it up here. So next week it's on you, my friend. Careful what you ask for. You just got it. You're opening the show next week. And Reza, my friend, what are you grateful for today?
I'm very grateful for my team right now. I've got a team of very motivated and motivated people working literally around the clock because they're all over the world right now, and they're putting a teamwork, and I couldn't be more grateful.
Amazing, amazing. And it could even be the smallest of things. And people I have some students I'm teaching at Global Startup School right now. And I put that to them as, what are you grateful for? And they kind of got, I don't know, nothing. It's like, oh goodness. It's like, so I'd even shared even a small thing like I'm going to do today. Yesterday, between unbelievable downpours of rain that we had here in Vancouver, and it just had one again here this morning, I had the window cracked open. I'm working away and I just heard the sounds of birds, kind of that springtime sound of the types of birds that I haven't heard in about 5 months. And I just listened to that for about 5 minutes and it just lifted my spirit. It was something as simple as that, of just hearing those birds between rainstorms. And that just made me smile. And so I'm grateful for that. See, it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be something as small as that to express some gratitude towards. So thank you for sharing that, my wonderful co-host. So quickly moving on here. So Startup Vancouver, best way to connect with us is through social media. We're very active on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also our community page on LinkedIn. So all of our events, the other ones around town and across the country that we co-present or support. Like I said, part of what we do here, we're not here to compete. We are here to collaborate. I know all the good things that they do out at UBC with E at UBC. We support and promote all the great events you have out there, which you're going to learn more about today. And also, if you enjoyed this recording, you want to hear more, you can go to our YouTube channel. As you can see there now, hopefully you can see that on screen. We're at 99 subscribers. We're so close to 100. We just need one more to break that century mark. So, you know, it's all about small wins in entrepreneurship. So, hey, help us celebrate a small win of someone out there. There's no prizes. Just do it because it feels good. Just be that 100 person that subscribes to our channel there. And well, thank you. We appreciate that. So as I mentioned last week, we had a very impactful event as part of our Can Startup Stories series. We're doing this every 2 months now, and that was mental health awareness for entrepreneurs. Unbelievable speakers. Maryam was part of that. I want to thank all of them for that. I am currently post-producing the recordings from that, and we'll be putting each one of the speakers individually, like a TED Talk like format, on our YouTube channel. So all 6 of those unbelievable stories will be shared on there. This is meant to be an interactive and engaging hour of conversation. So hey, if you're joining us on Zoom there and chat, if you're joining us on Facebook through comments, post your question on there. Because hey, don't be shy. If, after we have about our 10-12 minute conversation with our guests, we open it up for Q&A. And hey, if you want, we can even open up the mic, or we can even get you on screen if that's what you want. We're happy to do that too. So as I mentioned in the past, our charity partner that we're very proud to be part of is jack.org. And jack.org is the only charity in Canada that are advocates and supporters of mental health awareness across the country for young people, for youth. And they do this at a grassroots level by empowering them as ambassadors and advocates in schools and in the community. And so far on the show, we managed to raise $900 and growing, almost at $1,000 level. We have a donation today. So Maryam, Reza, you know what that means? I'm going to be singing today at the end of the show. So stay tuned for that, or be ready to run away if you don't want to hear that. But that will happen. Very quickly here, their big fundraiser is at the end of May, which will be a virtual ride for youth mental health this year with jack.org. We'll be posting more of this on our website also and on social. So yeah, mental health awareness across the board for entrepreneurs, for everybody. Just to help remove that stigma, every conversation we have, we cannot say enough about this. So on today's show at the end, hopefully Mike jumps on with us here today. Partner with FASKEN Law, as I mentioned. So I'm going to have a conversation with Mike. In the middle here, with Leigh Christie from MistyWest. Maryam's going to have a conversation with Leigh. And to start the show off today, I'm finally going to stop sharing my screen. And Reza is going to have a conversation with Michelle about all the good things that are going on at UBC. So Reza and Michelle, take it away.
Michelle, great seeing you here. I think
Thanks, Reza. Lovely to see you as well.
Of course. It's been, I don't know, gosh, it's been a year. I can't believe it that I saw you in Tech Vancouver being part of a panelist. And I remember vividly that I was thinking to myself, how can somebody be the head of marketing at UBC for entrepreneurs and at the same time started a business in wine? That was fascinating how you were handling those two. I want to introduce you to the audience, and I'd like you to do it, actually. You're the entrepreneur in residence. You're head of the brand marketing in UBC for entrepreneurs in residence. Tell us what does that mean? Who does it apply to? And then I want to follow up with what's happening over the past year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And first of all, I'm over the moon to be able to join you today. And just wanted to note my gratitude actually is very much for the energy of this community. So love the work that everybody is doing here. And, you know, being an entrepreneur is challenging at the best of times, never mind when we're in a global pandemic. But I just love the energy of people that want to change the world and rule the world. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to chat with you today. So yes, ironically, the last time I saw you was at an in-person event. Those are becoming sadly a bit of a distant memory, but we'll take what we can get. So an entrepreneur in residence is a mentor, basically. And so there are, you know, business incubators and accelerators all over the world that sort of leverage the expertise of seasoned or senior or executive level talent to be able to come and work with, you know, early stage entrepreneurs and innovators to really provide that coaching and, you know, kind of help them move along their journey. And so for me specifically, my area of expertise is marketing. So brand marketing, digital marketing, communications, PR. And so I operate actually is what's called an XIR. So that would be an executive in residence with a sort of subject matter expertise around marketing. So that means in my world, I have the opportunity to spend time with these incredible entrepreneurs at UBC and help them with their, you know, marketing strategies and working with them on press releases and case studies and marketing plans and social media strategies. And also, you know, really sharing their stories and celebrating their wins. So my role as kind of this head of brand marketing within entrepreneurship at UBC is to really support those ventures and telling their stories and helping to amplify the work that they're doing and helping to get them on the radar of potential investors, customers, you know, maybe they're looking at hiring, but also to really demonstrate that we have such a rich and dynamic, you know, technology ecosystem here within, you know, within BC. So to be able to actually really amplify those stories and say, yes, actually, we're building a really solid ecosystem here. And, you know, we're seeing lots of success stories that have made the news in the last little while of, you know, companies that have worked within, you know, UBC in building their ventures, such as Accelera. You know, they were in and around at UBC long before I was there, but they're such a great example of, you know, a research-based, you know, innovation and group of entrepreneurs that went from the lab into the market. And so that's the kind of work that we do.
So Michelle, tell us, I want to get to know your day-to-day stuff with these entrepreneurs, the stuff you help them. Is it mostly helping them do a great job at their marketing and branding their product and services, or is it you promoting them to other platforms and communities, connecting them? What are the breakdowns of things that you help entrepreneurs in UBC?
Great question. And honestly, it's a mix of both. So actually, I think there's a couple of the UBC marketing folks that are that have joined the webinar today. So I'm surrounded by this amazing group of young marketers. And so we work together to actually amplify the stories of the ventures within UBC, making sure that they're getting on the radar access to different funding opportunities or different competitions or different types of initiatives and supports and whatnot there. As well as telling their stories and really kind of plugging that into the overall economic impact that UBC is part of driving, of course, along with numerous other incubators and accelerators across the province. And then I have the opportunity to work more one-on-one. And so within our program delivery, I lead our marketing workshops around brand marketing, messaging, and positioning. We have office hours that we do once a week. So that's an opportunity to connect directly with the venture that's like, hey, can you, give our website a review, or we're, we've got a press release that's coming out. Could you, help us in the creation of that or review that? And also, we build up a media list. So we're able to kind of also give them a bit of a leg up and help them get established and get access to some of those resources, whether it's a media list or, putting together a case study or whatever the case may be. So it's a combination of both.
Every time, Michelle, when you say this, it reminds me, every time I talk to someone about universities and the value of getting into a top university, one of the main things that comes to my mind is the kind of access you're talking about. Having access to Michelle and getting those advice and getting connected to other entrepreneurs like yourself. That is something that, it's a luxury that when somebody gets into a top university like that, they get access to. But I want to know, I personally think there is a way to bring those type of connections to people who are not part of UBC. And today I want to know what was one thing that you say that was a learning that somebody who is not part of this program can also apply into their marketing, into their, reaching out to other communities and raising investors and raising awareness.
Well, I think that, I'm a big storyteller. And so I think it's really important to, and in a good way, it's really important to really, you have a story to tell about your journey, about your company, and you want to be able to get that story out there to as many people as possible. And so there's different avenues in which you can do that. And certainly you can leverage social media and share, any of the announcements or exciting accomplishments, that are happening within your organization, and really start to build up a network, both personally and professionally. For me, content is king. Or queen, however you want to look at it. But a content strategy is essential. And so I really encourage, founders and their ventures to be creating content in the terms of blog posts. And there's different ways in which you can repurpose that content. So if you created a piece of content for a blog, you can include it in an email newsletter. If it's announcement worthy, you can wrap it up as a press release. You can share it on social. And I often say to, ventures that are an early stage, even if you don't have a website that's, where you need it to be, you need to have some kind of digital footprint. So whether that is just a very basic social media strategy, or, you can leverage LinkedIn for long form content, you can set up a blog using Medium, but being able to actually tell those stories and share the news and position yourself as an expert and a thought leader in the work that you're doing is really important. And as you're promoting your venture, you really want to be thinking about that digital footprint, because you're going to start to get that exposure, all eyes on you, driving that traffic, for example, to your website or, to your social media. So making sure you've got your brand and your messaging in check, and that, the positioning of what you're doing, your value proposition is super, super, super clear. Sometimes when you're deep in what it is that you do, you get wrapped into the language that's quite specific to your industry. And you really have to remember that as you are connecting with customers that, maybe you do have an innovation that would be brand new for them, or, maybe you have a better version of something that's out there. You want to make sure that you are super accessible. And I guess the last point is, that your story should also really be rooted in your mission, vision, and values, because I think we know this and we see this, especially, on the consumer side of things, people vote with their wallets. And so regardless of the type of business that you're building, people are going to gel if you're relatable, if you, really embody the things that are important to them, you're going to win them over as a potential customer because there's that alignment with values. So those are some of the things that I think are really important, regardless of whether you are involved with
I love this. Thank you. I love the story part of it, Michelle, because that is what, when it's relatable, when you put it out there, it's like a magnet that grabs the right investor, grabs the right customer, grabs the right people towards what you believe in, what you're about. My question to you, over the past many years and your experience with these entrepreneurs, tell me these two types, how often you see these two types: an entrepreneur who has a story but have a hard time to tell the story, an entrepreneur who's trying to tell a story but they don't have a story to tell, but they're just trying to create that story. Because I've seen them both. I don't know, in your experience, which is more common and how you give them advice.
I think what's more common is having a story and not being able to tell it as well as you want to tell it. And so, again, if I kind of go back to the example that you're building this thing that you're super passionate about, you're so deep in the weeds of what it is that you're doing, that sometimes it can be tough to kind of get out of that and have an objective perspective and think about the language and the relatability that's going to attract people to you. With entrepreneurship at UBC, we have entrepreneurs that, are from all backgrounds and ages and whatnot. But regardless, all of a sudden you're kind of putting yourself out there. And I think that this is a relatable experience. You put yourself out there and you're like, did I make sense? Do people think that's cool? Do I look silly? Like, all of a sudden you start to sort of second guess yourself. And so, I mean, just that kind of confidence issue, if you will. And so I think that's something that we see, or I see more often than not. And then it really is about going back, and it's like, you got to be your authentic self, right? You have to tell the story in a way that you can get people excited about something because you're excited about something. And that should really be what you focus on. And, whether it involves you kind of practice telling that story in front of a mirror, just so you can kind of get a sense of how your words may sound, or, you can pitch your family or your friends, or you can voice record something. There's lots of different ways to kind of get some practice on articulating that story. But I think it really comes down to being very clear on, your values and really the core and sense of what it is that you have on offer, and that authenticity that you give to it, because this is your passion.
Absolutely. Love it. Before we wrap it up, I also have a comment I'm gonna add at the end. But before wrapping it up, Michelle, what is keeping you up at night these days? And tell me, over the past 9 months or 12 months of pandemic, what has changed in what you're doing? Michelle, I don't know if my
internet connection is a little bit on the rough side, so I missed the last thing that you said. My apologies.
Don't worry. I'm just saying, over the pandemic, what has shifted for you guys? What have you been doing differently? Are you still able to do the same things and meet up with entrepreneurs on Zoom and continue the same work, or lots of things has happened and the storytelling format, I'm sure, has been affected?
So what? So one of the things that we did with entrepreneurship at UBC is, when we had to bring everything online, and so all the different ways in which we would engage with people, like that just dramatically changed. We needed to think really creatively about how we're going to connect with the community. So like yourselves, we launched a podcast. Nice. And so that was one way in which we could be telling great stories in a different way that was engaging. we also recognized that our community was like hungry for connection. It was last summer, and I was thinking, oh, are people going to want to be on Zoom for events when you're, on Zoom all day long, and Zoom fatigue and all those kinds of things? But we were getting actually questions directly from the community. When are you going to be holding an event? Because how else are we going to actually connect with people across the ecosystem? So we actually launched a monthly community town hall in the summer. We've been running them monthly ever since, and they are really, really powerful. In fact, we actually have one today, and these community town halls are actually open to everybody, but from 5 to 6 today, and you can find that information on the EAUBC LinkedIn or Facebook or our website or whatnot, but it's actually around mental health and founder mental health. And so these community town halls, they're like 100 plus people that attend them. And it's just a great way for us to connect with the community and have people share their announcements. And so those are just a couple of things I think that have really helped keep everyone connected and enthusiastic about, the work that needs to be done.
Michelle, have you heard about an app called Clubhouse?
Yes, and we're just having that conversation with our team to check it out. So I'm going to be checking it out.
It's definitely a great way to have a casual podcast environment, create a room and have people join. It's a very casual way of connecting. So I think your community would really like it. Lastly, before I hand it back to Colin, I just wanted to make a comment regarding the storytelling. It's very powerful. What you mentioned, golden nuggets. Everybody should use it. The other thing I want to add is sometimes your story either isn't complete or it doesn't have that wow factor to cut through the noise. You do have a story, but you want to have an edge over everybody else. There is a way to create a story. Last year, about this time, I did not have a story to launch my product. So actively, I went to 100 events in 100 days to create a story on that backbone to put it out there so media can run with it. So sometimes you have to create it. You have to go and do something, and that creates a story and then tell it to the world. So it goes hand in hand. You have a story and you're building on top of it. It's like a painting. It's like a canvas that you're painting whatever you like to paint on it. Thank you so much for sharing those golden nuggets. I'm going to hand it to Colin if we have questions for Michelle.
We do. Well, we definitely want to keep on rolling here, but we do have one question. Maryam, I see you have one. I just want to make one quick comment there. What you talk about, Michelle, there as far as be your authentic self. I love that. It is so true. And as I've used this one on the podcast or on the show before, so Reza and Maryam have heard this before. It's one of my dad's little golden nuggets. And that's what he told me when I was a kid, when I was obviously caught lying again. And he said to me, he goes, Colin, the truth is easier to remember than a lie. And I went, dang, right? Just like be your authentic self, right? It just comes out naturally. Be true to that, be consistent, and just give. And that's what we need to do. And that's what everybody is doing here today. Maryam, very quickly, I see there was one question here. Why don't you ask that for Michelle, and then you and Leigh can jump on your conversation.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we have Joanne here who's asking, she's saying, I'm currently a sole proprietor of my wellness business, aka yoga instructor, but I have a vision of growing this business. How can an entrepreneur like me take practical step while not overwhelmed by the current fashion and reality? Is there any practical resources that's accessible?
Well, I guess I'll approach this with two things. So there are some great resources out there as far as, marketing tips and tricks. I'm a big fan actually of HubSpot has a great blog and, super 5 ways to, increase your social media engagement, like things like that. And I find that they have very tactical, insightful blogs that can be super, super helpful to just kind of, keep the momentum going. And the other thing is, I came across this a few years ago, a piece I was reading from a VP of product with Facebook. And it's something that's really stuck with me, which is, every day you really should be thinking about what are the top 3 things that you need to do today that are going to move your business forward. And thing that doesn't fit into the top 3 is probably not going to move your business forward today. and so it should be parked. And so I really make a conscious effort, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed, whether you are an entrepreneur or you are just, busy with whatever work that you're doing. And Reza mentioned at the start here that I also have a business with my husband called the Wine Factory. So, I mean, I've got my hands certainly in a lot of different things, but I have to keep a focus list every day. And that helps me just like manage my time and manage my expectations. And just also really making sure that you take those breaks. We have a thing with UBC, we never schedule a meeting during, 12 to 1. So everyone is kind of forced to make sure that they actually get up on their computer and take a bit of a break. And for me, I incorporate, some kind of physical activity into my absolutely every day. I do 30 minutes of exercise. So these are things that kind of help my mental health, which helps my productivity, which helps me think clearer to make sure that I'm prioritizing and accomplish the things that are going to move the needle ahead for me that day.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Very inspiring. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So I'm really thrilled to be chatting with Leigh from MistyWest today. Leigh, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. The obligatory sound check. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show. Michelle, that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing today. You and I have a lot in common, especially with respect to having a vested interest in the local Vancouver UBC-related entrepreneurship community continuing to thrive in the tradition that it has done so in the last 30 years or so. I'm sure you and I could share many an interesting story.
Yeah, Leigh, I'm really blown away and by the way you approach. I'd love to talk about MistyWest, of course, with you and to share with everyone what you do at MistyWest. And you have a lot of projects that that you're involved with. But in particular, I'm really blown away by how you responded at the beginning of the pandemic. You're so resourceful. You're out there, you're recording videos, you're answering people's questions. You're detecting what is a problem. That's a skill, right? I mean, we really want to talk about how entrepreneurs, can really work that muscle to be able to detect patterns of what are the patterns, what is it exactly the problem in the market, what is it that we need now, so they can be able to respond just the way you did. You were very on top of it, and this is what our country needs, and this is what we're going to do. So I'm just going to hand it off to you to tell us a little bit about MistyWest and all the projects that you've been working on and how you responded to the pandemic.
Sure, it sounds good. I'd like to take a bit of an unconventional approach to the answer.
Sure.
I will start out by saying that, MistyWest is a hardware engineering product development consultancy focused on intelligent and connected devices. Okay, so there's the obligatory marketing sales statement. But I'd like to tell maybe a quick little story. What I really noticed about Vancouver and British Columbia in general is that you have this sort of system where you have a cool kind of in-group in Vancouver. And I sort of saw this with musicians and DJs and parties, growing up in Vancouver, and then after high school, it was cliques would form, and you'd get these people that were a local band, and they would become super famous, locally, and they'd sort of blow up, but they never really made it outside of Vancouver, and or maybe they'd go tour across Canada, and they got a little bit more interest, and maybe you'd have a local DJ here in Vancouver, and they'd have their gatekeepers, and they have their little cliquey scene and people waiting to get in at the guest list at the door, but they never really blew up outside of their little scene. And I think the same can be said for startups in Vancouver. And really what it's all about, in my opinion, is strengthening the community so that we're more able to bring dollars from outside of Vancouver into the ecosystem. And when I say bring dollars, I'm talking about investor capital, I'm talking about consumers and customers buying the products and services and having that cash flow back into our ecosystem. That's kind of priority for me. That's at least from I'm not talking about my mission and vision here. I'm just talking about the economics of it. That's kind of one of the most important things. And what I've really found is that having a first principles community-based approach is really key to making that happen. And on top of that, another sort of layer is being what we call mission driven. I sort of heard Michelle talking about that earlier. All the organizations that I founded over the years are all mission and vision driven. And so ironically, for most of them, we didn't know what the mission and vision was when we started. We created the community, we created the interest, we found our tribe, and then we leveraged our employees and leveraged our volunteers, when I'm talking about my nonprofits, to try to galvanize what that mission and vision is. And what we found at MistyWest was that one of the best tricks that we had up our sleeve was that we were trying to work on projects that would help in some way advance the abundance and inclusivity of our planet and the people living on it. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you've read the book Abundance before. It's a Diamandis book, great book, highly recommend it. But it was this idea that there's plenty more where that came from, this cornucopian mentality that is so uncommon these days. We've been beaten over the head so hard with the concept that we live on a finite world and therefore everything's finite and it's a zero-sum game, that people have stopped dreaming. They've stopped believing in the possibility of going beyond the limits of our planet Earth. And for good reason, right? I mean, obviously, we've beaten the crap out of planet Earth over the years and caused a lot of damage. And so we started living very unsustainably. So the limiting sort of cynical mindset kind of took over a little bit. And that's like poison to the startup community for the most part, unless it can be harnessed for good. And so what I'm getting at here is that we took this idea of being mission and vision driven around trying to create a sustainable growth, a sustainable system where we could essentially believe in ideas again, right? And not constantly get bogged down with this sort of limited mentality or this cynical mentality. And so we galvanized that with a statement, inclusive abundance. Again, it's this idea that you have abundance, but most importantly, it's inclusive. So it's not just, growth for the sake of growth. It's the growth for the sake of everybody, everybody as well as the planet. Okay, so that's a very, very difficult thing to say. It's a very difficult concept to understand. It's obviously very difficult for me to explain as I'm busting out this word salad. But the easy way to boil it down is the Sustainable Development Goals. So we use the SDGs as a measure for the merit of our projects. We use it as a check, basically checking to see if what we're working on is ultimately going to help further the human species. And it's just like a quick shorthand heuristic to make sure that we are sticking with our vision effectively.
I love that. And just wondering, so when you're working with entrepreneurs or startups, Canadian startups, what are your criteria? Is this what are criteria when it comes to who you're going to be bringing on board?
Yeah, I mean, with the startups is tricky with us. What I'll say is this: about half of the projects that we've worked on, probably even these days, even more than half, have been startup companies. So there's no lack of startups that have worked with MistyWest whatsoever. But what's made that possible is the fact that we have Microsoft, Google, Intel, Amazon, IDEO, SRI as clients, right? I mean, these huge multinational tech companies that struggle to hire engineering talent, that end up paying engineers, $500,000 a year to do stuff that we do over and over and over again. It's just crazy. The economics in Silicon Valley are just insane. And MistyWest sort of, in many ways, what makes it our company possible is that people really want to live and work in Vancouver, BC. They don't really want, a lot of people really don't want to have to go to Silicon Valley and do an hour-long commute and pay $4 million for their house, right? And so, we think Vancouver real estate's expensive. Try living in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I was there for about 1.5 years and it was great. When I was there, I loved it, but it's not Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I kind of look at it is like this: like we're here and we exist because we have a significant amount of capital flowing into our ecosystem from outside of Vancouver. And one of the ways that we give back is that we do take on local clients, typically at a discount. Okay, so we're not going to charge you the same, we have the same hourly rate, but we'll apply a discount to our startup clients, and a pretty sizable discount. And again, that's made entirely possible by these very, much larger companies. And so you might ask the question, well, why do we do it? Well, first and foremost, because it helps us fulfill our vision and our mission, right? I mean, working with startups, that's where we're going to, in many cases, find the most innovative projects. And the other thing is, you might think that we do it for the money, but actually we don't really make a lot of money off of startups. If you look at our profit margins, I would say that we've barely broken even on startups over the years. And in many cases, we've lost a lot of money working on startup projects. And so, given the high risk, it's still worth it because it really helps us stay super innovative and work on the kinds of innovative projects that are going to help fulfill our mission and vision. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool about working for startups that I think is really rewarding is that a lot of our startups get acquired by Google, right? And by Microsoft. And that ends up becoming a much more lucrative contract long term, right? So it's amazing how often people don't realize this, but a lot of companies, they don't IPO when they succeed. A lot of companies just sell early on because, frankly, if Google goes after your market or Amazon goes after your market, you're probably not going to survive. And so a lot of companies end up selling. There's no shame in it, especially if you're in a market that can easily get crushed by one of the FANGs. And so that works out really well for our business as well. And then the last thing I was going to say, just to sort of answer your question properly here, how does a Vancouver startup company work with MistyWest? The answer is fairly simple. You send us a one-line, not a whole deck, just a one-line sentence of what you're working on and why it's going to be successful, and your LinkedIn profile. And we can tell just by looking at your LinkedIn profile and based on what the problem is that you're trying to solve, whether you're suitable to work with MistyWest or not. We don't need a full deck; it's not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that
hopefully that helps.
That brings me to asking you, what is it that you look for on their LinkedIn profile then that would qualify for to work with MistyWest?
No problem. So the most important thing is tenacity. Your ability to eat glass and stare into the abyss, to quote Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, you got to have a high pain threshold, and you just have to have that mindset that you are an entrepreneur for life. You're going to work on this project and make it work no matter what.
Yeah. And
having that mentality is really kind of the biggest differentiator. Is strength of will is really the most important thing. And if you're starting out with like low willpower and low strength of will, my advice to you is start meditating and keeping a journal. Keep a journal of your intentions, of what you intend to follow through on. And if you find that you're not following through on your intentions, you probably don't have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. It's really important to have what I like to call temporal congruency. And that is to say that past versions of yourself should align very nicely with the present version of who you are and future versions of who you're going to become. If there's a consistency there, if you say, I want to be an entrepreneur, and then you want to be a ballerina a week later, or you want to be a hockey player a week later, that's not temporal congruency. Temporal congruency is where you consistently want the same things in life and you focus on them and you commit to them and you can show a track record of commitment. That is the biggest differentiator for by far for startup entrepreneurs. It's the biggest gauge of whether they're going to be successful or not. And you'd be shocked just by how many people are they've got a cool idea, they put some work into it, and then they lose their mojo and they give up. That's the most common problem by far.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to focus on your process for a second. We find some founders who, their approach to building is that, we build it and they will come. And, you touched on community a lot, and I want to for example, what is MistyWest's approach when it comes to building a product and getting the data that matters like very quickly to show that this is actually that you can validate it. How does that work? What is the process of the founder who could work with you to? Yeah,
no problem. The easiest one to point out right off the bat is first principle based reasoning, evidence-based reasoning. This is the idea that you want to kind of take your idea and ask yourself, how good could this get? Based on first principles, based on physics and math. How much better can your technology how fast can it improve and how much better can it get? The other question you want to ask is, what is the problem that you're solving? It's amazing to me how many people build the hammer and then go looking for the nail, and they have no idea what a nail looks like. It's the other way around, right? You want to find the problem first, and then be very technology agnostic in trying to solve that problem. In many cases, the thing that ends up solving your problem is a tool that already exists, in which case it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. But if you're trying to solve a problem and the tool to solve that problem doesn't exist, the hammer, so to speak, doesn't exist, go invent that hammer and make the best hammer you can possibly make. And don't get too caught up about it being a hammer, right? Like, if partway through building your hammer, you come up with a nail gun, so be it, make it a nail gun, right? Like try not to get too attached to your idea and your solution. Stay focused on the problem, and most important, go find your customer and stay focused on your customer. Being customer obsessed is the only way to do business nowadays. If you're not customer obsessed, you cannot succeed. Like that's the message that we've been getting pretty consistently from all the startups we're working with. And I kind of wish that we had been more strict about that in the beginning. I think that we could have helped a lot more startups prevent bad scenarios had we been much more firm with the startups that we work with in getting them to be obsessed about their customers. Finding that, like, even before you build anything, go find a customer, right? Exactly. Make sure you know what their problem is.
Exactly. So that they're not spending thousands of dollars building a thing and then realizing, well, the customers are not behaving the way they hope they would behave, you know? There's a lot more, obviously, that I would like to ask you, but we're sort of like coming close to the end of our session. And I just want to leave with asking you, it's what's keeping you up at night? And
what's keeping me up at night? Well, I think I need, if you don't mind, I think I need to at least give a couple of examples of the types of products that we work on, just to give people a better understanding of MistyWest. So we're a hardware product development engineering company, right? So we do, it's not that we don't do software, it's that when we do software, it's because we've done the hardware as well, right? It's because we've designed or created the hardware, and then the hardware has enabled the software. So if someone's doing software as a service, that's great. But if you're doing software as a service that is based on some proprietary hardware or custom hardware, that is the best way that we know for you to compete with giant software companies. Okay, so that's we call that the hardware advantage, and that's what we provide people. You don't need to have an engineering team at all. All you need to do is be able to raise the money, and we will build your team for you. And so that turnkey aspect of what we do, I think, is kind of clutch. So to answer your question, what keeps me up at night? Actually, I'll give two quick examples of products. One product that we worked on was a polar bear tracker for a WWF. So it helps you track where polar bears are anywhere in the North Pole. It's an IoT device, obviously. Another really cool device that we did was a strep throat detector. It takes a photo of your throat and helps uses computer vision to determine whether or not you have strep throat or not. And lots and lots of other sort of handheld or wearable IoT devices. Most of them are intelligent, so they have some kind of artificial intelligence on the edge. We love sensors, we love building custom sensors, but we're all about custom hardware. Okay, so to answer your question, what keeps me up at night? Well, there's two types of things that keep me up at night. The first type of thing that keeps me up at night is things that get me really excited. This has nothing to do with fears or worries or anxiety. This has to do with just, I love life. I love inventing things. I love creating things. So I have these reoccurring invention dreams where I'm like inventing something in my dream. And so I'm using SolidWorks and maybe some electrical engineering software to design a PCB. And I'm doing some calculations in math, and it's all kind of blurry and weird. It kind of blurs together. And I realize now why I get these dreams. It's because if I do too much business development, or I do too much like entrepreneurship, or I do too much recruiting, or things that aren't really core to my core identity as an inventor. Yeah, like my soul, basically. If I kind of ignore that for too long, it starts to creep into my dreams. And it's kind of cool, kind of a cool mechanism, because what it does is it makes it so that, and I think this is true for anybody, right? If you kind of ignore your dreams for too long, it's gonna make its way into your nightmares, and you're gonna start losing sleep at night, and that's kind of a sign that you got to spend more time doing the things you love. And
definitely, it will have a physical manifestation of it, you know.
Yeah,
if you ignore it for too long, your soul blueprint, right?
But the second type of thing that keeps me up at night are things that make me worry, like problems in the world. And I'll give one quick example, and then I'll turn off my mic.
Yeah, we really got to wrap it up here, Leigh. We love talking to you, buddy, but we're running out of time here. We still got to get Michael on here.
Wrap it up.
You know what? You can put that in comments. We do have lots of questions too. Actually, we do have Michael's lots of questions. Made some comments on there.
Perhaps I'll bite my tongue for now. Then I'll come back to it later.
But believe me, we love the soothing musicality of your voice. Don't get us wrong. We love it. You know, but we're trying to time box this bad boy here, even though you and Michelle have provided some incredible insights, some things that we've already known, perhaps forgotten, and you've reinforced, and also some new insights too. So I thank you both for that. So yeah, so we want to be respectful, try to keep this on an hour, maybe run a little bit over here today. But once again, as I said, Michael, we're not ignoring you there as an attendee today. Thank you for your questions. If we have a little bit of time today at the end, we'll definitely get one of those two on. But I'm going to actually
I had a question from the, no, I'm joking.
It's like poor Michael. Michael's going to say, why did I even join the show? It's like, I know Michael doesn't have a camera today, so all we got is a big purple M there, or a white M. So, but we can hear his voice there. So, hey, I'm going to now have a conversation with Michael Stevens, partner at FASKEN Law. Michael, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing just fine. So, hey, this may as well be a podcast here. We can't see your handsome face.
I know. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I'm so sorry. The tech lawyer that can't work out his tech.
The irony's not lost on
ironic. Good. Glad to hear it. That was awesome. Really stoked to hear Leigh and Michelle speak. It's been a while since I've seen Michelle. Obviously, well over a year. But really awesome to hear the energy in their voices and the passion. It's very palpable. So I would have been quite happy listening to those two speak for the rest of the hour, but great to be here. Glad I'm here in voice only. How are you doing, Colin?
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
Well, it has been a long time since we've actually had a chance to meet face to face at some of the events that we co-presented together. Volition Pitch Nights, of course, at FASKEN. You were unbelievably generous to offer your space many times for that event, and other things that you've done through Vancouver Startup Week. And when I first got involved in the entrepreneurship space here in Vancouver about 5-6 years ago, yourself and FASKEN were one of the first groups that I knew of, and started to realize you were part of this glue. And getting back to what Michelle had said about being authentic, that yes, it does affect your business in the sense that it's an onboarding for you, but that's not why you do it. And I know that. So perhaps you can start here, Mike, with saying, with FASKEN, your connectivity to not only the local innovation space here, and why you do it, why you put in the effort and the hours to connect with our entrepreneurship community in Greater Vancouver.
Great question. A lot of the thoughts from Leigh and Michelle resonate for me as well. It's the same sort of passion and purpose, and we're all trying to cure the same issues that we're all feeling. And you're right, actually, Colin. You nailed it. At the end of the day, we're a business, right? And our business survives and thrives off of revenue. And our revenue is, we don't make anything, right? We have no inventory. We have no IoT devices. We have bums and seats with brains. So in a sense, we're pretty familiar with a KBI kind of model, right? We have a bunch of people that are, generally pretty bright and motivated, and they have to go out and generate their own business and turn that business into cash in the door, and so there's advertising involved, there's marketing involved, and there's a real symmetry between us, particularly in the startup group of our law firm, between us and the clients we serve. And so yes, it's a business, and yes, the more clients we serve and the more advice we sell to these people, our expertise and our knowledge that we sell to entrepreneurs, the more revenue we make, and that keeps the old middle-aged white guys in the corner offices happy. But at the same time, part of why everybody in our group, and the tech group in particular, likes to do this is because it's just more fun.
Mhm.
If you consider the way that the other lawyers in our firm and other lawyers in other offices and across the world practice, they all practice with blue chip companies and bet the farm pharmaceutical litigation and intellectual property. Samsung is suing Apple and Apple is suing Google and all these multi-billion-dollar transactions where you don't really deal with people, you deal with documents and judges and courtrooms and and all that sort of stuff. We as a group of practitioners actually really enjoy talking to people like Michelle and Leigh and everybody else on this call and having a coffee with you, Colin, and finding out what's happening in our world, because it's a world that we are a building block of, and we like to participate in it, and we like to make sure it's healthy and functional and that people are getting good advice, not bad advice. And and we're providing like a conduit. Leigh mentioned this closed off ecosystem. We are insular in Canada. It's unavoidable. Everybody that travels abroad and comes back to Canada will always say, boy, it's darn tough to make friends in Vancouver. Everybody's very aloof and insular. Well, yeah, guess what? That's our reputation. And we like to break those down and give advice to people that gives them perspective that's broader, that looks beyond their own vertical within their own ecosystem, within their own geography and their postcode, right? And say, look, we work with companies investing from the Valley. We work with companies that come in from Western Europe. This is what people in Western Europe are going to want. This is what people from the Valley are going to want, and we have that experience, and we can educate and pollinate the ecosystem here. And basically, it's kind of cheesy, but we do ascribe to the mantra, a rising tide lifts many boats, and we're a part of that, and we feel it. And our success and failure, not only as practitioners of law, but as participants in the ecosystem, is really predicated on how many clients we take to the promised land or not, right? And it's not just an 80-20, let's see, volume play. Let's get as many clients in the door as we can, and 20% that rocket to the moon will ride on their coattails. That's kind of not it. Like, we like to work with people that we like to work with, we like to work with people that are worth it. As Leigh says, he can spot, I got to figure out what his secret sauce is. He says he can spot, an entrepreneur that's going to be successful by looking at their LinkedIn profile and kind of doing a little bit of other diligence. If we could do that, that's kind of the way we would face ourselves too, because it's the people that are really working hard and really, really grinding. And even though, it's not within their personality to pick up a phone 100 times before noon every day and try to sell their product, they do it anyways. Those are the people that we want to help, right? And kind of provide support and advice to, and push on so that they do become a success.
And circling back to Michelle's earlier point about authenticity, be your authentic self, and you and your team are just that, and you're consistent, and it all comes down to a word we haven't talked about that connects all this together, and that is not only thought leadership and giving back, but also cultivating trust and earning trust. And you've done that. Earning trust isn't sexy or glamorous. It's just being consistent and being authentic and just being there, just like a good friend, right? And
exactly.
Exactly. I'm going to age myself here with the British singer-songwriter Billy Bragg, and one of his lyrics is, "A virtue gone untested is no virtue at all." And I have to agree with that one. And you've proven yourself time and time again, yourself, Mike, and also your team at FASKEN, of having that virtue. And I just want to acknowledge that and celebrate that. And it's been a pleasure to know you, and hopefully we're just getting started here. And once we get back to somewhat reasonable times here, we all get a couple of needles in our arms here to connect as human beings here again, because everybody on this call here is a people person, and I know that we want to be together again. And a little bit that we do, we were talking earlier before the show about Van's startup drinks that we did for a year before that came to a screeching halt in March last year. To celebrate our 1-year anniversary. Even those type of things to connect this ecosystem again. And I've really taken a lead from you, from people like Keith Eppel and Paul Broussard at Volition, and others, and a lot of amazing women out there within our ecosystem that Vivian Chang, for example. There's amazing people that I've had the opportunity to learn from, and I learned from you also, Michael. So I'm so glad that I put myself out there and had a chance to get to know you over the years and what FASKEN is doing into our ecosystem. Thank you again for that.
Great. Pleasure.
Yeah. So I won't do the interviewee thing of basically saying a statement that you have dead-ended you with nowhere to go. So want to ask one more question. Actually, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to open it up to everybody, because we are at the top of the hour, but we could run over a little bit here. I'm going to open it up to all 5 people here. Hopefully it's not too much of a scrum. I'll even start with Michelle. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to jump in, you've got anything or a comment or want to say hi to Michael or anything you want to add?
Well, again, I mentioned at the top here that I'm just so grateful for the energy of this community, and can't tell you how much I miss the in-person. So I will take what I can get if that means that it's about connecting on podcasts or virtual events. And I guess that's one of the things that has just become so important. I mean, remember going to all these events going, oh, I'm so exhausted, another event, oh my goodness. And now it's like, where are my events? So be careful what you look for, I guess. So I just would have to say that for me, being able to actually connect with people wherever we can is something that gives me energy, because you made the point about, you know, I'm an extrovert. I get my energy from people. It's difficult to get that true experience online, of course, but I certainly seek out, you know, great people to connect with and encourage people to do the same thing, because you got to feed the soul. And so this is how I feed my soul. Nice. That and good pasta.
Nice. I just want to jump in here, Mike. You were able to connect with us right at the top of the show, but one thing we've got a new little segment called Grata Tuesday. So showing
gratitude. Oh, lovely.
So what's one thing, even some small little thing today that you're grateful for, that you're happy for, that you want to express some gratitude for in your life?
Oh, I'm extremely grateful for the clients in my life, and you said a huge mouthful when you said that you treat them like friends, and I'm really glad that somebody validates that outside of my client base, because that's absolutely how I see them. And my wife always says, "Why are you working on a Sunday morning at 3 a.m. drafting like an agreement for the client?" You know, when they're not able to pay you until they get revenue, which is 6 months away. Why are you doing that? Well, because I like them. They work hard and they have a good product and a great team, and I want them to succeed, and they're my friends. You know, and that, it's kind of funny. That's what drives and motivates me. And I am a people person, as much as it's not really like a lawyerly thing to be particularly extroverted and into people. We don't tend to be as a class of individual, but I am, and that's the reason I actually practice law, because I like the friendships and the bonds you make over client relationships and helping people achieve their dreams. I really do, and change the world. And so I'm really grateful on a Gratitude Tuesday for my clients.
Love it.
Love that. I'm connecting with you right now.
There we go. There we go. Hey, a couple minutes past the top of the hour here. So why don't we wrap it up here for today? I did see, Michelle, you did put in chat here that UBC has a community town hall today at 4 to 5 p.m. If you send me the link or tag us on social media, I can retweet that and share that later on. So make sure you do that, because we're happy to share that with our community. That's what we do here. We connect, right? That's what we're all about. We walk that walk.
Leigh, do you have any upcoming talks? I know MistyWest does quite a bit of talks. Are you guys still hosting sessions?
Yeah, so we do this thing called the Hardware Meetup, Vancouver Hardware Meetup. It's the largest collection of hardware community members in Western Canada. You know, I know that this is the startup. Vancouver is all about startups, not necessarily just hardware, right? And hardware is kind of like a subcategory of startup, right? And but yeah, for hardware entrepreneurs, it's probably the best place to go. And to find out more about that, just join the MistyWest mailing list, because MistyWest runs that group, right? So and we have those coming up all the time. We have tons of them, and we also keep your eyes peeled for other events as well. We do other events at MistyWest. The best way to find out about those is to follow us on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Just click,
Perfect.
type in MistyWest and click on the follow button. Mash that follow.
There we go. And we did put the link for your website for MistyWest in both on Facebook and also in the chat here on Zoom, so people can connect with you there, and also your LinkedIn profile for everybody on here, because that's just what we do here. So, hey, we're going to wrap up here today. Reza, I want you to end the show, but before you do, since we did get a donation to jack.org here, I'm going to do a little something that I do that everybody, well, at least Reza and Maryam are familiar with. They've had to endure this over 35 times now, and they're not sick of it yet. So I guess either I'm doing something wrong, or maybe they just mute me. Maybe they've got on to me. I don't know what that is. But what I do on behalf of jack.org, of someone donating, does go a little something like this. Nice donation by you. Jack.org says, thank you. You are awesome. Dennis Anisimov. Hopefully I got that right. Nice donation by you. There we go.
Awesome. Awesome.
Love it.
Thank you everyone for joining another Tuesday, Grata Tuesday. That is gonna be what's going on here every Tuesday. I hope you are grateful for the beautiful day you're gonna have ahead of you. Go crush it. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday.
All right. Take
Bye,
care,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Everyone, thanks so much.
Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you.